Yo, what's going on guys, Arekkz here, welcome back to another Division video, and in today's video I want to speak to you guys about patch 1.7 and more specifically global events. If you guys saw the last Division video I uploaded, then I had a discussion with two of the ETF Charlie members, fellow Division community members, Binary Num and Ryla, and in that we spoke about global events and commendations, which were formerly known as seasons and feats. They were of course the two things that they announced during the sort of year 2 Division anniversary stream, where they sort of sat down and celebrated a year of Division and then also spoke about their plans for year 2. Since then, there has of course been an ETF. They had a chance to go hands-on with 1.7, talk about their plans for the content, and also try 1.8, but it's important to note that the content they are showing today, the content that we've heard about and seen, is not the only stuff coming to 1.7. Global events and commendations are supposedly about half of what we can expect in 1.7. There is of course a lot more stuff they're going to be adding, but they are not ready to talk about that just yet. And then the ETF members themselves have actually said that 1.8 is probably going to be like the quote-unquote megaton patch, the one that's actually got a sizable amount of content in, so that is something we are definitely super looking forward to. However, the reason I want to talk about global events today is because there was a state of the game, and in that we actually got some gameplay of them in action. Hamish sat down and spoke to a couple of the developers from Ubisoft Reflections, and then in that we got a look at one of the changes to the base operations and also how the global event modifier will work, some of the rewards and things like that. So in this video, for those of you guys that haven't seen the state of the game, I want to recap all of that and tell you guys everything you need to know. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions, and also let me know what you guys think of this content. Now, of course, do bear in mind, it is still in development, so things are still subject to change. And it's also worth mentioning there is a PTS plan. They said it's going to hopefully be in a few weeks. They haven't got a specific date just yet because they are still locking things down. But this is important to note. This is the PTS they said that will also be on consoles. So quite whether there'll be a kind of disparity in the date with regards to PC and console, we don't yet know. But they did say that 1.7 will be the first PTS to hit consoles. So this time around, PC players, PS4 players, and Xbox players should all be able to experience this and give their feedback, which is going to be a great step forward. So once we do know a date for that, I will of course let you guys know. But for the time being, let's talk about global events. So if you saw the discussion, you'll have a rough idea of what they are, but to take the kind of description from the developers verbatim, they said that global events are a way to allow players to experience the existing content in the game, but in a different way, an attempt to make the PvE open world relevant all the time. So there will be one global event per month, and it will run for a week. So of the 4 weeks in a month, you'll have 1 week where there'll be a global event running. During that time, you'll drop in, you'll take part in the activities, you'll earn your rewards, you'll earn your credits, you'll get what you want, and then of course outside of that week, it'll be like a normal Division game. Now they did of course say outside the global event weeks, they'll have the usual sort of rolling events they've been trying, so things like double XP weekends, some of the other things where you get like double rewards from, say, you know, supply drops, other stuff like that. So there'll be things to do outside of it, but for the global event, it'll be 1 week per month. So for those of you guys that perhaps play a little bit more casually or don't necessarily play every single day, then this could be a great way for you to drop back in. You might decide to, you know, like find that there's a global event coming, you might drop in for that week, play, you know, a fair bit, get your rewards, and then sort of tune out for the next couple of weeks until the next event comes around. So that's a surefire way to at least allow you to kind of fit the game into your schedule and not necessarily have to, you know, play it day in, day out to effectively stay up to date. Now on top of that, any PvE activity that is done in a global event will give you a global event token. This is a new currency that is used to purchase the items specifically tied to global events from the new space in the base of operations. So if you go down to the terminal, you can see, of course, you know, where you would normally go to, you know, do a lot of your crafting, buy your items, of course, visit the vendors, and go to Survival and Last Stand. There is now a new section of the terminal over very near the crafting bench, and in here there will be a vendor. This is where you go specifically to buy your global event items. Now they haven't shown what they are just yet, but if you cast your mind back to the reveal stream and also the discussion we had, then we know that there is a specific vanity item tied to global events, something you cannot get anywhere else. But there are also supposed to be some stat-based items as well. Of course, that's the information that came from the discussion with Binary Num and Riot last week, so we don't know exactly what those are just yet. Of course, the ETF members do, but we as a sort of wider audience don't currently have that information. So all we do know is that there will be a vendor here, and you'll then be able to use your items, your coins, to purchase caches from these vendors. And of course, on opening those caches, you have a chance to get the items. Those items are specifically tied to that global event per week. So if you get that specific vanity item or that specific item during that global event, then the next time it comes around, the following month, there will of course be a different set of items available. At least that's how they initially have it planned. It's also worth noting that within this area, within this kind of new terminal area, there will be leaderboards that you can check, and they're kind of more sort of percentile focused. So it's not necessarily just going to be a case of who plays the most. There may be some other conditions there to, allow you to sort of rank higher. And of course, there will probably be rewards tied to those leaderboards. But again, they weren't too specific about them just yet. They did say that very soon, maybe in the next kind of, week or so, then hopefully when we get some more gameplay, we will begin to know exactly what's available. I imagine the stuff from the vendor and the leaderboards are probably linked together. But either way, that is something to bear in mind. Moving on from there, the actual map itself. If you open up the map, you will see these new purple zones highlighted. Now, it's important to remember that during a global event, every single PvE activity will be affected by the global modifier. So that's normal missions, incursions, underground, things like that. Any of those you do will be affected by the global modifier for that week. However, the purple highlighted areas is a specific playlist of missions that are grouped together that allow you to add an additional modifier on top to get more rewards. So in this situation, the global modifier applied to absolutely every PvE activity is something called Rotten to the Core. The idea is that it adds an additional headshot damage multiplier to your headshot, so you actually deal more damage if you're shooting enemies in the head, plus when you get a headshot kill, their head will explode in this sort of gas or pus cloud explosion, and if there are nearby enemies when you do that, then those enemies will also be affected by this gas and they will have a bleed applied to them. So the initial base modifier, the base global modifier, does actually make all the activities easier. It's something that effectively buffs you up as a player. It will encourage you to play in a different way. So if you aren't necessarily the sort of player that typically goes for headshots, if you just kind of spray the body, then you will of course want to, focus slightly more on that. So the idea behind these modifiers is to change the way that you play. But if you do work around that modifier, then it does actually make the activity easier. However, where the challenge factor comes in is when you do the playlist of activities. Because if you go in there and you actually add the activity modifier, that is where things get more difficult. So again, in the case of Rotten to the Core, if you throw on the activity modifier, then there's an additional layer added on top, whereby if you yourself get too close to the enemies, then that sort of poison Rotten to the Core modifier is applied to you, whereby you actually get kind of a poison applied to you, you start losing health, and if you actually stand too near the enemies when you headshot kill them, that bleed is also applied to you. So for those of you guys that want the challenge, then you'll of course go specifically into that playlist, throw on the modifier, and then in the process, if you complete it with that challenge, you'll of course get more rewards at the same time. So the default reward you would get from, say, this playlist would be 100 global event tokens, but if you then throw on the modifier, you get 150, so there's of course value in doing that. They also said that their justification for the kind of global modifier making things easier is because, of course, if there are players that are, playing slightly more casually, trying to sort of like drop in, drop out, then if there's an activity they haven't necessarily done before, or they kind of found it typically quite challenging, then if it happens to be in that playlist, they might consider revisiting it. But again, for those of you guys looking for a challenge, there will be the option to add those activity modifiers. They also gave us a couple more examples of things that could be global modifiers. One such example being a modifier whereby if you get closer to the enemy, you do more damage, and if you stay further away, you do less damage. So if you are sitting back sniping from afar, sniping from somewhere safe, then you'll actually find it a lot harder to complete the mission. But if you actually get up in their face with something like a shotgun or an SMG, then you're going to be doing considerably more damage. And this can actually extend to teams as well. So there are team-focused ones whereby, say, if you're running around as a team together and you keep moving, then you deal more damage. But if you actually stop and stand still, then you'll actually start losing health. So that particular modifier then kind of encourages you to never stop running. You effectively run your way through the mission, almost like a speed run modifier. And again, if you can actually maintain that, you're rewarded. If you can't, then of course you're going to be punished as a result. So there are examples of things. They did actually say that they are open to suggestions for modifiers. So if you have ideas for things that you would like to put some kind of crazy twists on the missions and whatnot, then by all means send them to them on the forums. They are of course listening, but those are some of the kind of things they want to do. And again, as a reminder, this modifier will be active for all PvE activities for that week. Once the week is over, then of course all the rewards will be done, you buy what you want, and of course then from that point onwards you will then return to a normal division for the next 3 weeks until the next global event comes out. They said the other cool thing about this is that there'll be sort of like a week beforehand, there will be this kind of theory crafting week where they'll tease what the global event will be, and then people might start speccing their builds specifically around that, so then when the event itself actually comes out, they will then, have a week of blitzing through it, earning their credits, and then once it's finished, you'll of course, go into hibernation for a bit until the next event comes around. And that, my friends, is pretty much it for the time being. There's not really a great deal much more to talk about at this stage. Again, they did say that at some point soon they will be showing us, some of the rewards, some of the things we'll be getting, and also some of the additional content we can hope to see in 1.7. But at this stage, until they've kind of locked it in place, then they're not ready to show that just yet. So do keep your eyes peeled. I would imagine over the next few weeks we will hopefully find out more, and also find out a slightly more concrete date for the PTS. But they did say they're hoping to kind of have that in the next few weeks. So I think given that A3 is next week, then we could be looking at something like end of June, beginning of July, maybe something like that. So hopefully not too long until we get a chance to go hands-on with this ourselves. But anyway, for the time being, that's it. That is what you need to know. Again, if you missed the discussion with Binary Number and Rylat the other day, then I'll link it down below. Definitely check it out. It's about half an hour long, but there is some good information in there, and they also kind of talk about their ETFA experience. So if you're interested in that, then do check it out. But until then, thanks for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.